Hello, this is Xenerock, and today we're doing top 25 albums of 2020. 2020 was a very rough year, and I feel like it was for music too. And it makes sense. If you're a musician, why would you want to put out an album when you can't tour on it? And also, how are you going to practice or go to the studio? But there was still some great shit that came out. So we're going to do this in order, 25 to 1. And I'd just like to start out saying I'm not a musical expert. And I've not researched these albums or these artists. Everything here is just my opinion and my bad takes. All right, so I'm gonna breeze through the first 15, and then we're gonna get more in depth on the top 10. Number 25, Ultimate Success Today by Protomartyr. Ultimate Success Today captures the feelings of sadness and dread of the past few years in a loud, noisy, and somehow also sluggish, lazy way, in a modern post-punk way. Number 24, Sawayama by Rina Sawayama. Rina Sawayama hits the scene hard with this metal and early 2000s dance pop and R&B album. This album is both beautiful and danceable while still having angry ragers interlaced perfectly on it. Number 23, Anthropocene by Grimes. Anthropocene sets you in a dystopian world using beautifully crafted soundscapes, sporting themes of AI takeover mixed with human emotion. It manages to be modern and futuristic at the same time. Number 22, Kiss My Super Bowl Ring by The Garden. Kiss My Super Bowl Ring is probably The Garden's most sporadic album, and its goofiness complements its more angry, frustrated moments very well. It's both fun and relatable. Number 21, Everything is Beautiful by Princess Nokia. This is a feel-good, happy-go-lucky album, like the title and cover suggests. Princess Nokia focuses on staying positive and motivated to beats that are both dirty and whimsical. Number 20, Spilligion by Spillage Village, Earthgang, and Gizzard. They've all come together with even more artists to make this groovy, religion-themed album, which points out hypocritical and toxic parts of the church and society while still using religion as a unifying and motivational force. Number 19, Sleepyhead by Cavetown. This is a super sweet yet sad folk rock album that puts me right into my feels without hitting too hard. It's jammy at times and simple in the right ways, covering mental illness, loneliness, and the beauty and importance of relationships in a needed, gentle way. Number 18, 2017 to 2019 by Against All Logic. A.L.L. brings a very interesting experimental style and intriguing sounds and samples to electro house, as well as being able to seemingly tell an emotional story without lyrics. Number 17, Miedo by Uchis. Callie brings hauntingly beautiful vocals and a mix of Spanish and English. There's points on this album that go harder than her last album, which is great to hear, but it still has plenty of simply beautiful songs showing off her voice and emotional side. Number 16, Opening Night by the Blams. They want to be Queen so bad, and honestly, they're the best at it. This album is like going back in time to hear amazing vocals and instrumentation of rock ballad legends without the low quality of older recording techniques. Number 15, Cumbia Siglo XXI by the Meridian brothers. It's a weird, goofy album for sure. Very interesting use of synths and vocals. I don't speak Spanish, but I think it's got communist themes in there, and that's very cool. It's hard to pin this album, but I listen to it a lot. Number 14, True Opera by Moor Jewelry. This is a raw, fast-paced noise rock album that's fairly minimalistic instrumentally with clear punk influences. It's filled with dread and angst from front to back. Number 13, Fungus 2 by Segall, White Shirt, and Black Puss. This is a kick-ass, fast-paced rock album, and I think that's all you really need to know about it. Number 12, Visions of Bodies Being Burned by Clipping. Just like the name suggests, this is a horrific album, addressing the fear of violence and feelings of paranoia using abrasive, noisy production mixed with quieter, more mysterious beats as well. Many songs are named after horror movies, and the album itself almost feels like one. Number 11, It Is What It Is by Thundercat. Thundercat comes in with a funky, fun, yet intricate jazz R&B record that's so delightful. It Is What It Is goes from being serious to lighthearted so smoothly and without losing any musical quality. The electronic and hip-hop influences are well implemented, and the features really flesh out this album from Kamasi Washington to Zach Fox. Number 10, 3:15:20 by Childish Gambino. Childish Gambino rounds out his musical career with this groovy and thoughtful experimental electronic R&B album. The instrumentals take their time, and there's a huge range of vocal styles. There's very modern forms of religious thought all throughout this album. Some songs, like Time, feel like going to church. Then, Childish's funnier personality that he used to utilize a lot comes out to tell a story about tripping on 1238. The songs and instrumentals are designed to not only feel like a story, but to show how the character was feeling at the time. Which the character is probably Childish Gambino, but I'm just assuming there. Also, 3928 is proof that Bill Wirtz walked so Childish Gambino could run. And the little kid on 4748 is so fucking sweet. Overall, this is a fun, danceable album with some really good meanings in it and very interesting composition. Number 9, Worldwide Torture by Jazmin Bean. This album is a fantastic mix of dirty trap beats with metal, PC music, and even some noisy bits. Jazmin expresses the sick desires of world domination and juxtapositions between being sweet and a twisted bitch. This album is extremely modern and in the best way possible. And Saccharine is probably my favorite song of the year. It's so relatable in the fear and anxiety of not just commitment, but intimacy in general, addressing intrusive thoughts and self-destructive actions in a goofy, more down-to-earth way. Their use of instrumentals sort of make them seem like a god, but more like real physical gods, like in the Norse traditions. I love the roller coaster that Princess Castle takes you on, describing standing up for yourself and how that feels. Then Warzone Urchin is like the aftermath, some form of breakup, and moving forward being alone. Jazmin takes being a bad bitch to a new level on this album, a grosser level, and they specialize in talking shit. Little Lamb doubles down on the self-destruction by going back on things that Jazmin talks about earlier songs, which highlights the cyclical nature of anxiety and how there isn't just a simple be better. Number 8, 10 Years by an Unkindness. This indie rock, folk-inspired album is so real and impactful. It tells these stories of feelings and experience with big focus on mental illness and the reality that comes with that. Many songs are almost like pleading for relief or help. Even though it's sad and discusses suicide, it also feels triumphant. The beauty of it, the resolve and how they survived, gives it this feeling of victory and moving on with their life and past the person or persons that haunted them. The piano playing and writing is musically phenomenal. Freedom tackles the conflict of love and having to grow past bad relationships. It's not as simple as leaving because you love them, but you also can't just open people's eyes for them. You have to choose to change, and no one can make you do it. The styles between songs all sound cohesive, but still manage to be different and diverse. I really appreciate the upright bass on anything. This album was a long time coming, hence the title, but it was more than worth it. And I'm excited to hear more, even if I have to wait another 10 years, which yes, I was there for 4 songs. I'd been waiting. Number 7, Un Canto por México Volume Uno by Natalia Lafourcade. This album goes so fucking hard. She literally has her own opening act on her album. Natalia is the baddest bitch. Once again, I don't speak Spanish, but I catch myself trying to sing along because it's not just gorgeous and exciting music, but it's also catchy. Just like her previous albums, this is a mix of covers and original songs using traditional stylings from Mexico. A lot of times with strings, and it almost sounds like an old movie soundtrack when you've got those luscious string sections. There's a mix of genres and styles on here that keep me interested throughout the long runtime, and I can't get enough of this album. It works great as both music to dance to and music for the background. It's uplifting and dynamic, so no matter what I'm doing while I'm listening, it adds solid entertainment. Number 6, Shabrang by Sevdaliza. Shabrang is hauntingly gorgeous. Joanna is a perfect intro too, because it puts simply how the ending of Ugly Love is. This song shows off Sevdaliza's voice without being overcomplicated and really puts you in the mood for the rest of this gut-wrenching album. The guitar riffs across the album are raw and intimate, even though they're used in a droning way, which adds to the repetitiveness of life and its emotional roller coaster. Sevdaliza uses electronic production styles in such an interesting and refreshing way, mixing them into her R&B style in very creative and beautiful ways. The way the different parts of the instrumental flows in and out on the song All Rivers at Once perfectly reflects the song, and it's very impressive how she uses music. Sevdaliza puts her Iranian heritage into this album, most notably on the song Gole Bi Goldon, but even the album itself is named after a legendary horse in Zoroastrian mythology, Shabrang. She takes the droniness in a different direction on Darkest Hour with a groovy electronic beat, which I really appreciate, right before the gorgeous and danceable Oh My God. This album encapsulates the mundane feeling of a toxic relationship. While a lot of albums focus on the horrible parts or the feeling of wanting to end it or rebel from it, Shabrang really shows off the everyday interplay of the mind and the passive abuse that is rationalized and accepted. The experimental nature of human nature feels critical near the end of the record, and I appreciate a change of pace with the piercing high-pitched auto-tune vocals. The weirdness doesn't let up on No Way. This album feels like forever, and the subtle changes in style throughout it help me get through it. But I think the long-winded feeling is intentional. Much like a bad relationship which drags on, this album feels like an eternity. And at the end of No Way and into Road, the music really explodes, which is a relief after all of this drony prettiness. You know, here's some fierce dirt. I imagine that might be the way that a breakup after all that feels. Number 5, Ugly is Beautiful by Oliver Tree. This is how a pop album should sound. Ugly is Beautiful is a fusion of a lot of different genres in a fun, very accessible way. Nothing is holding Oliver back, and the focus is on him and his story. This album keeps me engaged the whole runtime. There aren't periods or songs where I don't want to listen or sing along. It also speaks a lot to the young adult experience right now. A good lesson from it is that you can be taken seriously without taking everything so seriously. And the vocals aren't that impressive, but that's the charm of it. Imperfections shouldn't hold you back. They are what make you unique and interesting. Oliver is making his dreams a reality despite anything that might hold him back, like not being the best singer. Things like that are arbitrary when you've got a great story to tell. And what makes Oliver Tree's story so great is how relatable it is. I personally relate a lot to this album, and it has actually helped me get through some parts of my life. For example, when Hurt came out in December of 2019, it felt like it came out right when I needed it to help me gain the courage to move forward with my life after feeling abandoned by a lot of people, including myself. Also, I think putting Alien Boy on this album after it was on his debut EP is not only hilarious, but some old punk rock shit. And not sticking to one genre or style while still being yourself is a big theme I get from Oliver Tree and all his art. Number 4, RTJ 4 by Run the Jewels. Ooh la la, feels like the hit we needed. And it also helped push this album even further into the public eye since it was used in ads and is so damn catchy. I think this album is important because it makes leftist politics not only seem cool, but also displays the necessity of it. Walking in the Snow is a great example since it doesn't just say things are bad and here's what to do about it, but rather it presents the world in a way that displays how fucked up it is and why, showing different perspectives and how seeing these things make them feel in a desperate, sad, but hurried and stressed manner. The sound of this song feels like wanting to give up, but not being able to because life moves too fast and there's too much at stake. Just takes this a step further, showing off the blatant ingrainment of oppression. Society is designed to keep people subservient and pushes certain beliefs on people passively. The slave masters are on our currency, the currency that people live and die for. Get it? This system pushes you in a certain direction that allows the elites to use you. Never Look Back goes into this idea while bringing it back to their lives and story. The instrumental on Pulling the Pin complements the title so well, giving this feeling of it's too late to go back and it's all inevitable now. RTJ4 is an album that perfectly captures what the USA feels like today, after decades of building towards late-stage capitalism and the centuries of minority, especially black oppression in this country, coming to a head in 2020 with the largest and longest-lasting Black Lives Matter protests we've seen to date, and even that being overshadowed by a horrific pandemic that now the rest of the world has under control and we still don't. America is sad and embarrassing, as much as it is terrifying. Run the Jewels has done those truths justice with this one. Number 3, Children of the Atom by Imp. This is such a well-crafted boom bap jazz rap album that uses the story of the X-Men as a perfect parallel for the race disparities in modern America. Imp starts this album off with Fury, rapping fast, angrily, and clearly about the situation they find themselves in. Then it gets into the groovier storytelling to really deep dive into both their life and the bigger political problems in the United States. The sticky piano riff and catchy lyrics on Itarant keeps it in my head, and the puns and flows make me want to listen to it again and again. The instrumentals the African Space Program Collective helped make are so good. The drumming is raw and captivating, while the horns buzz around from being smooth to erratic, which feels very natural when you've got racing emotions and feelings. The frequent sample-filled intermissions work really well to move the story forward and show off interesting instrumentals at the same time. Giant Robot Week is an absolute banger, and a nice change up in style in the middle of this album, right before my favorite song from it, I Use They Them Pronouns, by the way, which addresses the feelings and troubles of being a non-binary person, or at least a person that uses they them pronouns that isn't always exclusively non-binary, and non-binary is not exclusively that. No one seems to understand, when you're non-binary, no one seems to understand you, and it's always there in your face, questioning your validity and facing opposition from every angle, especially in the form of dismissal. Direct opposition is easy to deal with, but when you're invalidated, it's hard to even accept yourself. Mew's vocals on this track adds a beautiful element to this track and complements Imp's voice and the instrumental very well. And on the beat switch on Shootin' Craps, I can't help but go Red Spies in the bass after the sample goes Intruder Alert. When this album came out last July, it felt like perfect timing due to the BLM protests all over the country and the repeated civil rights violations back to back. Civil rights violations have been happening constantly since this country was founded, but during the protests, they just did it openly and on camera for the whole world to see. I'm hella surprised that the same frequency and volume of protests aren't still happening. Testify really shows off tension between our elected officials and the people. Our politicians don't understand, and they don't care. They will back corporations, profits, and power over the people every time. Why are folks so surprised that there's protests and riots when there's huge amounts of corruptions and disregard of human life? And on Imperfections, the line, "My own biases baffle me," is such an important statement. Because life isn't as simple as right and wrong. It's complicated. And even when you think you're doing the right thing, or you're woke, you've still got ingrained biases that you need to recognize and work around or against. Also, sick guitar solo to end this joint. God, this album is so good, and I can't wait for more from my favorite Atlanta rapper. Number 2, KG by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Unlike Infest the Rat's Nest, this feels like a typical King Gizzard album, but it still brings an interesting new style. The guitar work almost reminds me of some of the rock that's coming out of the Sahara Desert right now, like bands like Miedo, which I love. The second track, Automation, sets the scene for the rest of the album, with a call to put your brain in a computer. Seems like a popular theme from last year. And I don't think I want to if it's running on JavaScript though, as they suggest. I'm not sure if this album is supposed to be dystopian like the last one, because it sounds so happy. Maybe it's just a curious look at the future, even though I kind of doubt it, knowing King Giz. Ontology does sound like a video game soundtrack, which I think is a really cool addition to those themes, since video games have been tending to push technological innovation, at least for the public market. Intrasport kind of keeps with the video game feeling, but with a groovier electronic vibe, which I would love to see more from King Gizzard. The transitions in this album are very good and smooth. You can kind of just fall into this album and let it flow by. Honey has a sweetness that kind of brings me back to reality, but then mystifies me again right before the epic finish on this record. Overall, this feels like an almost perfect record. The band is technical and creative as always. It's so easy to listen to and highly enjoyable. We're finally here. Number 1, Ultramono by Idols. This is an explosive album, and Idols is moving away from their classic sound that they set up with their first 2 records, and are experimenting with it, which I love to see. It's more electronic influenced, it seems, and I wasn't sure about it at first, but now I eat it up. War is a great start to this album. It's catchy and a bit silly, which is good. When it comes to politics and bad takes, you've got to make fun of those with ill-informed opinions. So, you advocate for war? Pew, 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 pew. A big theme on this album is believing in yourself and self-confidence, which honestly helped me out a lot over the last year. And Grounds is thunderous. It's like punching some narc in the face. A lot of motivating political advocates get made fun of or called campy, so Mr. Motivator is a spit in the face to the haters. Idols is going to be annoyingly happy and push for positive change, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. If you're going to call us campy, then we'll turn the cliches and campiness up to 11. Anxiety is my favorite song. It builds like a panic attack and addresses how anxiety can cause you to do things that you normally wouldn't do and aren't great, while also addressing some of the stress given to people by the government and our corrupt society. I do think it's funny that a band from the UK, which has free healthcare, talks about not being able to afford medicine. Try living in the US. The ad-libs, stutters, and intentional voice cracks on this album are so cute to me and adds a goofy level of fun as a reminder that we're all human and don't need to take ourselves too seriously. Then, Model Village is the perfect description of living in a small town. Just perfect. Politically, I disagree with the end though. I agree with Killer Mike on regentrification. Stay in your hometown or move back to your hometown to make it better rather than just moving somewhere you already deem good. But that doesn't take away from how enjoyable the song is or the overall message from it. Ne touche pas moi is a very important song. The lyrics are genius, and the message is one that needed to be heard a long time ago. When they're screaming consent on the second half, it is a little cringy, but maybe that adds to it because these concepts seem obvious and have been being said for decades, but people still don't get it. So making it as clear as possible and hammering it in is super important. It does read like a tweet that repeats the same line over and over again, but like I said, it's probably intentional. Your politics and apathy will kill you and everyone else too. That's what carcinogenic is about, that and loving others and yourself. Rains is the loudest song you will hear, like the masses of the working class screaming for change. Then, The Lover comes back with more unapologetic campiness and self-love. Self-love comes with a lot of acceptance, and that's the message the album ends on. Even though it's my least favorite of the 3 Idols albums, Ultramono is still easily the best album of the year. Alright, that's the list. Thank you for watching. I made a mix to commemorate the best albums of the year, which you can find in this description or on my SoundCloud. Like, subscribe, tell me what some of your favorite albums were below, or if you agree or disagree with any of my takes. Thank you.